Welcome back to Psychology with Mr. Snyder, and today we're going to be talking about the physical development of children. Here are your learning targets for today. We're going to analyze the importance of physical growth from the period of conception through childhood, all the way up through adolescence. We're going to define reflexes, what those are, and how they are beneficial to babies. We're going to analyze motor development and perceptual development as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Physical growth. Let's talk about what that is. It's changes in the reflexes, obviously height and weight, but then the motor development and perceptual development as well. Just so you know, the most dramatic gains that a person makes in height and weight is actually in the womb before a baby is born. And then let's get two periods defined. Infancy is the period of birth through 2 years. Those dramatic gains in height and weight continue. And then through childhood, which is 2 years old through 11, 12, 13 years old, even earlier, onset adolescence is earlier now than it was even 50 years ago. Children gain on average 2 to 3 inches in height and 4 to 6 pounds in weight until they reach the start of adolescence. Reflexes. Obviously you know what a reflex is, but a reflex, just to get an operationalized definition, is an involuntary reaction or response, like swallowing. Swallowing you've known how to do, you did not have to learn how to do that. They are inborn, and they occur automatically. I had a baby niece born just about a month ago, and when she was born, I was holding her, and I couldn't resist. I just kind of grazed her cheek, and sure enough, she turned that way, because that is rooting. Rooting is looking, she thought that a nipple brushed against her cheek, and she was looking for it because she was hungry. Grasping is a reflex. If you put a finger in an infant's hands, they will grasp, to try to hold on. Sucking and swallowing. The moral reflex is if you make a loud sound behind a baby, they will kind of curl up into the fetal position to protect themselves. And they didn't have to learn that. That's just inborn. And then the Babinski reflex, we're not really sure why it happens, but if you take something and brush it against the infant's foot, their toes will sort of fan out. And we're not really sure why that happens, but we know it is a reflex and they don't have to learn it. It just sort of does happen. Rooting and sucking disappear as children grow older, but some remain and some come under voluntary control as an infant grows older. Let's talk about an infant's motor development. Motor development is purposeful movement, so moving in order to accomplish things. And there's two kinds. Gross motor development is coordinating major muscle groups, moving your arm, moving your leg, walking, flipping from side to side, stomach to side, stomach to back, back to stomach. That's gross motor development. Fine motor development is your hands, like pinching, your facial muscles, other small muscles that you need to use. That's fine motor development and coordination. And the point that infants develop is different from culture to culture. You can see here in America, the infant walks at about 15 months, but in Africa, in portions of Africa, infants can walk as early as 6 or 7 months. And the reason why is that a lot of infants in America play on the floor and they don't get practice walking around. Whereas mothers in Africa carry their babies on their stomach or their back almost all day while they're doing chores and such. And so the infant gets used to that motion of going up and down, and they're able to walk sooner and control that. So it does vary from culture to culture and obviously from infant to infant. But this graphic on the right is a basic graphic for what American infants do. Let's talk about perceptual development. And remember, perception, how we psychologically process our sensations. So, infants are learning new sensations to which they are exposed and how to deal with it. Infants love new and interesting stimuli. The experiments we do on babies, you show them something and they get used to it, they look at it, then they start getting bored with it and looking away. If you put it behind a screen and then put something new next to it, they'll look at the something new for a while and they'll be interested in that until they get bored with that, and then they look off into the distance. But they prefer new and interesting stimuli. It's almost like they want to learn about things. I wonder when that goes away for the rest of you. Anyway, perceptual preferences are influenced by age. And then there's the depth perception. And this experiment is this visual cliff here. Obviously, this child is not in danger. But what they have in a visual cliff is a mother on one side of a cliff. There's glass there, obviously, to protect the baby, but they don't know that. The mother will call the infant to crawl across the glass, and an infant that is just learning to crawl will crawl across the glass. But somewhere between 7 and 9 months, the infant no longer will crawl across the glass because they know that they'll fall. And so that is gained through experience. We're not, psychologists are still studying it. They're not really sure why or when or how they gain that experience, but they're still looking for it. And then when an infant is young, their hearing is obviously better than their eyesight. Their eyes have to develop throughout the first year, and they also distinguish stronger odors better than when they're older. And that is the end of today's lesson. Hopefully you learned something about it, and I will see you later. Have a nice night.